Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I was like a little kid this morning. I woke up early before my alarm clock and I was excited. I have a guest who says what I think, but I'm afraid to say, and I think a lot of us fit in that category. I think this is a person who's undefinable. I'm not impressed by success, and he's in a world that I'm not used to in a way. But just hearing his story, hearing what he's saying, what he stands for, and having the courage right now, I think is the time for a guy like this. And I think it's a voice that we all need to hear. I know I've been encouraged and I've worked out with him, listened to his music. But more importantly, I think the important thing is I love my kids to listen to his music. I love friends, family, because it's a positive message and it's an important message. Plus his resume, I won't even try his resume. This guy is the female deadlifting champion of the world. I don't know if he still holds it, but he was at one point. He's lived in Saudi Arabia. He speaks different. He's a Renaissance man. If you want to talk about a Renaissance man, I think he's the guy that when you Google something, he goes, Zuby, what do you think, man? So Zuby, welcome.
Yo, thank you. That's a beautiful intro. Very kind of you. Thank you.
No, it's awesome having you. And I think, I think it's a funny thing. I think a lot of us right now in this culture, we're afraid to say what we think. We're afraid to say, yeah, that doesn't make sense. We think it, but we don't say it. And I think you're a guy who doesn't go out and try to offend, but you speak the truth as you see it, know, and I think that's controversial in its own way.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing because I don't know, man. It's only been a couple of years where I realized that I guess even going back further, I guess in my childhood as a teenager, I guess I knew that I don't necessarily think the same way that other people do, but I never realized to what extent. I never realized to what degree. I think that 90% of the things that I say are not controversial at all, right? I think that they are things that are very standard and moderate and pretty popular opinions on a national and a global level. And like you said, I think a lot of the stuff I say is what a lot of other people are thinking. And I don't, but it's in the past couple of years where I've really seen the impact of that. Nationally, internationally, my audience growing, having all these opportunities, doing hundreds of interviews, being in all these different places, meeting all these different people, and receiving thousands upon thousands of messages every day, every week, from people telling me that they are finding some hope or faith or positivity in what I'm doing through my music, through my podcast, through my social media, etc., where I've really realized like, oh, wow, okay, I'm doing something here that's genuinely impacting people in a positive way, and people of all ages, as you sort of mentioned, people of all ages, people in the UK, people in the USA, Europe, Asia, Africa, etc. So I'm like, wow, okay, I think I've found my sort of position in the world, and my position is me just being me and being my true, authentic, honest self. So if that resonates with people, then that's a beautiful thing.
I think it does, and it does with me for sure, because I hear it and I think, gosh, I think about this, hearing you, I go, I wonder how he was raised. Like, what was your growing up? What was that like? What gave you the foundation to speak truth as you see it and to be the man you are now?
Sure. I mean, look, I've got two of the best parents in the world. I have a wonderful family, great parents. I'm the youngest of 5 children, so I have 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters, 9 nieces and nephews. So I'm from a large and a tight and a strong family. I'm from a great family, so that absolutely plays into that, and that's certainly a part of it. And then I'm just, I'm just the way God made me. I'm just wired a certain way. I have a certain personality type, and I've never been someone who just goes with the flow and does what everybody else does. I've always been someone who really sticks to my own principles and my own values and my own beliefs. It doesn't mean that my beliefs don't change, right? I actually change my opinions very, very quickly if proven wrong, right? Or if presented with new information. But in terms of just trying to appease people or do or say whatever is expedient at the moment, even if I don't believe in it, etc., I'm just not wired that way. It's not my personality type. And I'm someone who, holding certain things in sort of pains me more than, so a lot of times people will say, like the way you introduced me, you said, I say things that other people think but are afraid to. And it hurts me more to not say the things that I say, right? Like for me to not, like if I have an opinion on something or I'm seeing something going on where I'm like, no, this isn't right, or this isn't fair, or this isn't good, or whatever, I physically cannot stay silent on it, right? Even though I know other people might, because they think it's sort of safer or it's more expedient, or they don't want to rock the boat or whatever. They don't want to kind of get in that battle. With me, I'm kind of like, man, if I do that, I feel like I can't look at myself in the mirror and be like, hey, Zuby, I'm proud of you. I've got to be like, man, Zuby, why are you being a coward? Like, say what say what you want to say. That's just my personality type. So I don't mind rocking the boat. I don't mind being so-called controversial. I don't even mind people disliking me. I don't care if people don't like me, right? I've got thousands and thousands of people who love me. If a handful of people dislike, I don't care. In fact, there are people out there it's reached the level where there are people I don't want to like me, right? So I'm a musician. When I started in music, I wanted everybody to like me. I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to put out anything that was polarizing. I didn't really want to give my thoughts and opinions on certain things because I knew it could divide or polarize people, whatever. And as I got older and wiser and more experienced and more successful, I just realized, like, dude, you can't, everybody's not going to like you. It doesn't matter, right? I'm a Christian, you're a Christian, man. Like, people crucified Jesus, right? Jesus got canceled, right? So, and this is the man who was the perfect man without sin, who lived his whole life helping people. And so I mean, that says something about humanity. It's not simply about like, oh, if you're if you go out there and you spread negativity or whatever, then you're going to be the only person who's the target of any sort of scorn or vitriol. It's like, no, it doesn't matter. Anyone who if, yeah, sure, if you go out there and you put out a lot of negative energy, you're going to get negative energy back. But even if you go out there and you put out a lot of positive energy and you try to help people and you demonstrably help thousands of people and you inspire thousands of people, you're still going to get a subsection of the human population who doesn't like you or feels like they don't like you, or you make them feel a certain type of way. And it's like, you know what, rather than trying to dim my own light so that those people might like me or find me less abrasive or whatever, I'm just going to do what I do. I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to speak what I believe is correct. And I'm very open-minded. I'm open to challenge. I'm open to argument. I'm open to debate. I'm open to discussion. If I say something and someone is like, no, this is why you're wrong, I'm listening, right? As long as they're not, just using ad hominem or attacking me or whatever. So with me, I think it's, there's always that question about nature and nurture. So there's certainly some of it is nurture, but I just have a very unique personality type, which makes me view the world in a certain way, and to really just not, obviously not to the level of being like a sociopath or something like that, but not to really care that much about what people think about me if they don't know who I am. I care greatly about the opinions of people who know me well, but if it's just someone who's just sort of come across one post or one song or whatever, and they're trying to form an entire judgment about me and my life and my beliefs and everything based off that one tiny bit of information, I don't care. I've just reached out to the stage where I just don't care.
Yeah, and I think I had to run into the same thing. For me, I have another podcast called Low Carb MD. We have 3 million downloads. It's been growing like
Awesome.
crazy. And then I said something about hope and faith one day going through COVID, and I got attacked. Like, and people said, look, talk about low carb. We don't want to hear this garbage from you, right?
Yeah.
About hope
Yeah.
and faith. And I
Yep.
was shocked. My partner on the podcast used the F word. I'm like you, I don't cuss.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if he uses the F word, no one bats an eye. If I say faith, everyone flips out. There's something wrong here. And I said,
Yeah.
look, I'm a Christian. This is what I believe. I lost
Yeah.
800 followers that day. And God
Wow.
goes, Brian, don't worry. The next day I get
Wow.
1,200 followers, right?
There you
So,
go.
and it's not about the followers. It's about the quality. Like you're saying, look, not everyone's
Yes.
going to like you. There's people that hated Jesus. There's people who hate Bambi. There's people who hate whoever it is. So
Yeah.
not everyone's going to love you. And it's a sad statement about those people,
Hmm.
right?
And if you're building an audience, it's man. This especially resonates as a creative person and as a musician, because I know musicians who are, they're sort of held ransom by their own audience because they have not been totally true and authentic to themselves, right? They've tried to pander with the flavor of the day and, post certain things because it's expedient to their career or it might gain popularity or whatever, but they're not being real to themselves. And when you do that, you can then be held ransom by your own audience. So you then feel like, oh my gosh, I can never mention my faith. I can never mention my Christianity, because if I do, my followers or my listeners, et cetera, are going to get angry and they'll stop listening and they'll unfollow or whatever. So you start to compromise your own self, right? You start to compromise and hide your own true self because you're now trying to appease these people. And the longer you do that for, right, people think that people generally do this because they think it's the safe thing to do. But I try to flip it to people. I'm like, no, that's extremely dangerous, right? We talk a lot about these days about cancel culture, and you can only be canceled if you build your house on quicksand, right? So if I build my music career by pretending to be something that I'm not, or even making a type of music I don't like, or putting a type of message out there that's not true to me, or hiding this aspect of myself or hiding that, then I'm creating the wrong audience, right? So those 800 people who unfollowed you, though, let them go, right? It hurts to lose 800 followers, but it's like, okay, bye, right? I
Yeah.
remember on Twitter, there was a day I lost 4,000 followers in a day for saying that I oppose abortion. I lost 4,000 followers in a day because I said that I oppose abortion. From a moral perspective, I think it's wrong. I said that straight up, right? And I lost 4,000 followers. And there's a part of me which is like, oh, it's not nice to see 4,000, that number drop by 4,000. But at the same time, I'm like, with this as well, it's not even just about agreement, right? It's not even me saying like everyone who follows me must agree with everything I'm saying. But if you can't even handle the fact that I hold this belief, then yeah, I don't want you here. Go.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
it's not that thing, it's going to be something else down the line where, you agree with me, oh my gosh, he said something I disagree with. That's it. Zuby is canceled. Let's attack him. And that's like, look, I don't want those followers. I want people who can be genuinely open-minded. And whether we agree or we disagree, or we somewhat agree or we somewhat disagree, we can be mature about it, and we can be adults, and we can be genuinely tolerant, and we can genuinely appreciate diversity and inclusion and all these
Yeah.
buzzwords people like to
Yeah.
throw out there. But you'll find that some people, they'll talk all that talk, but as soon as something goes against what they believe, right? I'm not gonna unfollow someone because they don't believe in the same religion as me, or because they vote for a different politician, or because they
Yeah.
have a different view on a certain. I'm not going to unfollow them, right? As long as I know they're a decent person and I like what they're putting out and they're offering value, I'm not going to unfollow them for that. So I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to unfollow me, then bye, go.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing. I think, again, the hypocrisy of saying, okay, well, be tolerant. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
tolerant. I mean, and I think there's a difference between being tolerant and loving
Mhm.
people, right?
Yes.
I don't tolerate my best friend. He's, I went to USC. He went to UCLA. He's Muslim. I'm Christian, right? I'm
Yeah.
married with kids. He's a single guy.
Yeah.
We have everything's different about us when we love each other. It's like, why the heck are we friends? We just love each other, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's our differences, because when he goes, Brian, you don't understand the Middle East. Let me explain it to you. Cool. You don't
Mhm.
understand my faith. Explain this. And we're not trying to
Mhm.
convert each other. We just say, look, this is how I live my life. And he'll call me and go, man, I love you do medical outreaches. I love it. I want to do it one time with you, right? Because
Yes.
he sees it and it's good. And I
Uh-huh.
think that's I think what we've done is we've divided ourselves so much with political correctness, and you don't want to say the wrong thing, one wrong. And the cancel culture, I think, of people as faith,
Mm,
the reason it bothers us is like, I believe in, you believe in redemption. I
of
believe someone
course.
can redeem themselves. I think everyone has hope. And even if you do dumb stuff, like we've all done dumb. It's like, I just tweeted, like, drop your rock sometimes. We're all throwing rocks and we're not looking at our own self, right? Our
Yeah.
own issues.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. And the hypocrisy is the thing that's the most mind blowing, because often the people who pay the most lip service to some of these things, tolerance, diversity, inclusion, equality, etc., in terms of their actual behavior, oftentimes they're the least inclusive, least tolerant, least willing to embrace diversity, so on and so forth people, right? They really do want people to just conform. And I'm not about conformity. I'm not trying to build an army of people who just agree with everything that I say. And I don't always agree with everything I say.
That's
Right?
what I say too
Right?
to myself, right?
Right?
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, we change our minds. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I just have an opinion on something which doesn't clearly have a right or a wrong. Sometimes I have no opinion, but I like to open up discussions. I like to talk to and understand different perspectives, because the only way you ever learn anything is by being wrong or being challenged. That's literally what learning is. If you go through your whole life and you're never challenged and you're never proven wrong, then you don't know anything, and you can't understand anybody, and you can't understand the world. I mean, there are 7 point something billion people in the world, and we are all different. Even within the same family, you're going to have differences. Even within the same friendship group, you're going to have differences, let alone on a local, national, and international level. So we need a way that we can all get on with each other. And like you said, love each other and treat each other kindly, love your neighbor as yourself, and understand that, look, we're not going to always agree on everything. And sometimes it might get a bit heated. Sometimes it might get, contentious. There are certain issues which everybody gets pretty fired up about, regardless of what side you are on. But if you don't assume malice, a lot of stuff comes from not assuming malice, which can be hard, and there are malicious people out there. But most people don't wake up in the morning and think, okay, how can I make the world worse today? Right? Most people, that's rare, right? You have to be a true psychopath to do that. Even the person who you disagree with the most on everything, right? By and large, they're still doing their best, operating on whatever is their own moral compass and principles and guidelines, even if it may be misguided, um, to do what they think is right and correct, etc. And ultimately, look, we know that human beings are flawed. I'm flawed, you're flawed. We know every single human being is flawed, but we can accept that, and we can still love people, and we can still have conversations and discussions and debates, and we can get on with each other and be civil at a minimum. At a minimum, we can be civil, um, as long as everyone is willing to agree to that. If we can't agree on other stuff, like, at least let's agree on, okay, let's be civil, right? Let's not punch each other. Let's not shoot each other. Let's not physically hurt each other. Let's not like scream at each other. And everything else we can discuss, we can debate, we can agree, we can disagree, we can put this forward, we can put that forward, but let's just agree on these basics. And as long as you can do that, you can at least have a harmonious society.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing. I think that's what I've noticed on Twitter, social media, is that it's us against them always. The vegans are fighting the carnivores, and you got, because I'm in that realm more so, right? And you got this guy
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
it's like, hey, if it works for you, cool, man. If your
yeah,
religion works, I'm not going to convert you over to mine. If you're a disaster and you're beating your wife, maybe I can help you a little bit. Maybe I
yeah.
can be a light to you. And I think that's where we've lost that where we can have a really reasonable debate and go, because I think it's not a debate, it's a discussion. Because if
Yes,
it's a debate, you have your side made up and you're going to defend your point, and I have
that's
my
true.
side
That's
made
true.
up and I'm going to defend my point. If it's a
Hmm.
discussion, go, Zuby, why do you see it that way? Well, your
Yeah.
life experience is different than mine, so you're going to see it differently than I do, right?
Hmm.
If you get beat up by the police every time you try to go out, then your life experience, that's something I haven't experienced. So I
Yeah.
get it. I get it from your perspective, because that's what you've dealt with, right?
I haven't personally, but yeah, some people
No, not
maybe
you,
have.
but I mean
Yeah, yeah,
in
no, I
general.
know.
What I'm saying is,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I
my
know, I
view is
know.
like, I grew up,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so you start. So it's funny how we have our worldview, and I have to say, look, abortion. Like people have a different worldview than I do. I
Mhm.
agree with you, the way I
Yeah.
see it. But I
Yeah.
have major compassion for women who've had an abortion or feel like they have to. But I
Mhm.
also have great respect for women who said, I'm keeping this baby no matter what the cost is. And you see the blessings that come in their life and these
Mhm.
miracles, like, like Tim Tebow's mom, right?
Yeah.
Was supposed to have an abortion because he was supposed to have problems. And so you look at, he never would have existed. And you see it from that term. And I think till we value life. There's places
Mhm.
on the earth I've been where people don't value life at all,
Oh,
like,
for real.
right? And there's the greatest people on earth in those places,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And look, of any issue, that is the one that gets me most fired up, right? I mean, because most issues are not life and death. But to me, I'm like, yo, this is a life and death issue. This is a human life issue that's being discussed here. So I'm not a hyper emotional person, but if there's one issue that can, get me emotional and, get me quite fired up, that would be the one. But even on that, you know, ultimately we all have to practice empathy. And even from a tactical perspective, right? Even if your goal is to change someone else's mind, right? The way to do it is not by turning them into a moral monster and by framing their argument in the worst possible way, right? And again, on this issue, this happens on both sides, right? So someone who's, so-called, who's pro abortion rights, right? They will say that, oh, if you're pro-life, that means you're forced birth, or you don't care about women, or you hate women, or you're trying to force this, or you're trying to where, we know the reality is, no, I'm not trying to force anything. Like, I'm not forcing anyone to even get pregnant to begin with. And then on the other side, you get people who are like, oh, well, you're in favor, you want to kill babies, right? You're trying to kill people. And it's like, I can understand from an emotional perspective where both of those arguments come from. But if I want to change someone's mind, the best way to approach it probably isn't by calling them a murderer, right? That's probably not, especially given that, look, the arguments are normally fairly nuanced, and there aren't a lot of people who legitimately, like, that's their position, right? Just like someone on the pro-life side, their position
Exactly.
isn't, their position is not, oh, I just want to force women to have babies, I just want them to be baby, like, that's not anybody's position. It's this fake straw man. So rather than going with the sort of dumbest fake version of the argument, I like to know the best argument on any topic. If I'm going to have an opinion on something, I want to know the best argument on both sides of the debate, right? I don't want the dumbest version. I want to know the best argument on both sides of the debate. And then I can actually, from an informed perspective, I can then come to my own conclusion, or at least have a discussion or have a debate with someone where we're not talking across each other, and we're not just resorting to ad hominems, etc. Because it's very, very immature. And like I said, it's not productive. It's similar to, again, we're both people of faith, and it's a bit like, you know I'm sure you've seen, I don't know, you might be out and about in the street in the, middle of a city or something, and you get the sort of street evangelists, right? And some of them do it in a nice, kind, loving way, whereas others take the approach of, standing out there yelling at people that they're going to go to hell, and
Yeah,
that they're going to
exactly.
burn in hell,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that their souls are going to be, that Satan owns their souls, and this and that. And I'm like, yo, I'm a Christian, but if I were not, this would not be, I don't think this is what would convert me. I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, these people are crazy. Like,
Ex-
this is psychotic. I don't want anything to do with this. And I'm just, when I
exactly,
see that,
man.
I'm just like, yo, man, this is not the way. Like, and I think, again, I think the intention is good, but I think tactically, I'm like, this is not the tactic.
Well,
Like,
yeah, and that's the thing, is the tactic. Like, some people, whatever, like, they violate the rules of their employer just to make the issue that I'm a Christian, so I'm going to read my Bible when they tell me not to, or I'm going to do, say a prayer out loud or something, and where it's going to be offensive. Like, no, you're just being kind of a jerk. You're forcing
yeah,
your issue on other people, because none of us want to be. And that's honestly why I did this podcast separate than my other podcast, because I didn't want to have a bait and switch where people go, look, I want to hear about nutrition, and you're talking about your religious stuff. So
yeah, yeah,
this allows me to have a forum to do that. For we can talk about this, because if you think this stuff doesn't affect your health, as a doctor, I can
Mhm.
100% guarantee you it does, right?
Yeah.
Your outlook and your perspective. And so, I think things like that where we start, when I look back on life, I'm looking at like Tim Tebow. He
Mhm.
goes and takes a knee, and everyone was outraged. This guy's controversial. He's crazy. You don't want him on your team. He's too controversial. That was controversial. He took a knee, and this guy says, I have faith. And
Mhm.
now, if you don't take a knee, you're controversial,
Yeah.
right? So I think this thing of how things switch, like he was like a lot of people were offended by him, right? Because he
Mhm.
stood up for his faith. And I think, wow, I respect someone who stands up for what they believe, whether I agree with what they're doing or not. At least, you know, Kaepernick, he's taken a huge hit, for
Mhm.
standing up for what he believes, right? So I think we have to be able to have a right, whether we agree or not. And I think this cancel culture is the problem, where you can't say, yeah, I see where he's coming from. I don't agree with him, but see
Yeah.
where he's coming from. Like to me, I thought it was nuts when I saw you got canceled from Twitter before it was cool to be canceled by Twitter. This for saying, okay, dude. You
Oh my
respond to
gosh.
someone who's being a jerk. He's talking about how many women he sleeps with, and you say, okay, dude. And then you get banned. That's hate speech. Like, because they were looking at you because of all the other
Yeah.
stuff you're talking about, and
Yeah.
that was just something to get you on. It was a
Yeah.
technicality, basically, right? Wouldn't you
Yeah.
say?
It was very strange. Yeah. Well,
And then
that
that
was
ended
a,
up helping you.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm someone, I'm one of those when life gives you lemons, like I won't just sell lemonade. I'll make like a franchise selling lemonade. So yeah, I'm not the right person to kind of, I'm too entrepreneurial for them to sort of like gun at in that way. Um,
Yeah, and that was the
but
beauty of your song. That was
yeah,
one of the things I heard that song. I'm like, you know what? I love this guy because you're just say, hey, okay, dude, look, here's how I
yeah,
see it. You don't like my politics, you don't like my views, but this is me. I'm sorry. Like, but
exactly.
if in the funny thing I'm thinking is like I've seen uh Caitlyn Jenner, right? She comes
Mhm.
out and now does this and all this support. Then they find out, oh, Caitlin's a conservative. Oh my gosh, she's a terrible person. We don't
Yeah,
like this
yeah, yeah,
person anymore. It's like it's the
yeah.
same person. And they had the same, right? Because you don't like the message. We still have to love the person. I think that's the
Yes.
message we keep missing in the world, right?
Yeah, a lot of people are not good at separating the person from the idea, right? And this is something I do my best to do. I try to separate people from ideas. So if I think an idea is terrible, how do I put it? One of my social media strategies, especially on Twitter, is to be merciful to people but ruthless with ideas, right? So if I think something is a terrible idea, like if someone's proposing just a horrible bad like just an idea which is horrendous, right? Like I will. Okay, a great example, perfect example is my deadlift video that went viral. Okay, I did not attack any transgender people. I did not attack any individual. I did not, make fun of or dehumanize anybody, any individual, any group, whatever. But the notion that a biological male should compete with a biological woman in professional sports is absurd, right? The notion that me and my beard and my muscles and everything, that I can just tomorrow just say, hey, I'm a woman and I should now be allowed to play rugby or do powerlifting against women. We all know this is stupid. Like everybody knows. Like 99% of the population knows that this is dumb. Even a child would be able to be like, wait, no, that's silly, right? Because they know men and women are built differently. So everyone knows that. So I'm ruthless with that idea because it's a dumb idea, terrible idea, has real repercussions. It's dangerous. It's not fair. Terrible idea. Okay, so I can attack that idea or mock or use satire against that idea without attacking any actual individual or person who may happen to fall into that category or whatever the case may be. So that's something that I generally try to do. Maybe I'm not always perfect with it, but I generally try to do that. And you know, but I think a lot of people struggle to. A lot
Well,
of
you
people
make the
think,
point. You make the
yeah,
point. Like, just because we say we're something doesn't mean we are that. People are saying I identify as whatever race or whatever you want to be. It's like,
it's
hey, be
nonsense.
yourself and like
Yeah,
just love the person for being themselves. If they want to dress up a
exactly,
certain way, I'm cool with you. Cool, I'll be
exactly.
your
Look,
friend, and we could talk about. We might like the same football team or whatever. It's
yeah, exactly. And it's interesting to note that like very very few actual transgender people took any issue with that tweet and that whole thing, right? The people who are getting angry or pretending to get angry, none of them were even trans. It was people who are like, trying to sort of be activists for people, trying to be offended on the behalf of others, kind of thing.
I think that is
which
the
happens
thing.
a
I
lot.
think that is the thing that gets me, right? Because, as Christians, we're supposed to have the monopoly on hypocrisy, and other people are beating us out so badly right now because you have a lot of these professors, talking about social justice, and they go, all these guys, they're using the white privilege. Okay, I get it. But the point is, you're a professor, then resign. Let someone take
Oh,
your
yeah.
position.
Oh, yeah, of
Right?
course. No,
Because we want
they won't
everyone
do
else to
that.
do it, but not ourselves. And I think it becomes that point where you're trying to look like a warrior, but it's like, okay, sacrifice. If you believe that, Colin Kaepernick,
Yeah.
if you believe that and you take a knee and you're willing to not play football because it's cool, right? That I can respect you for that. I don't agree with you, but it's one of those things. You take a stand and you're willing to take the punishment for that stand or the consequence. Cool, like we do. Like we'll take a stand because you take a stand. Certain people aren't going to like what we're talking about.
Sure.
But it's the truth. And I think the other thing too, I've been thinking this because I think, if I want to cause destruction in the world, what do? I turn me against you because I find a reason not to like you, and I find a reason for you not to like me, and we separate ourselves. So once you do that, then you dehumanize the other side. You say all Republicans are bad, all Democrats are bad, all police are good, all police are bad, and you get to this point. It's like there's jerks in every belief. Like you said, there's Christians I look at and go, oh dude, I wish you were on the other side because you're not helping us out here, man. You think you are, but you're not. You know what I mean? And keto guys who are fighting with vegans, like, dude, leave the guy alone. He wants to eat vegetables, let him eat vegetables. Who cares? Like, he's okay and he's not hurting anyone. I don't care what he does. Right? With that mindset though, we get too carried away. Or like, if you're carnivore and you have one piece of lettuce, you're not carnivore anymore. Well, come on, man.
It's not
Come on, dude. Okay, dude. So
your diet shouldn't be your whole identity.
Or whatever shouldn't be your whole identity. Your sexual preference shouldn't be your whole identity. Who are you as a person? I have friends who are gay and I love them, right? I mean, they're my friend. They're cool. They're their thing, right? I'm not going to say you should do this and you should be married with kids and you like. My single guy, don't tell me you should do what I'm doing because it works for me. Doesn't mean it works for you. But at some point you go, look, your life's a train wreck and you're drunk every day. Maybe you need to look at it. Sure. But what I was thinking is we start separating ourselves like crazy. And then what happens? We dehumanize the other side. And then you say like, the big thing, Zuby, is we forget history. We forget history. It's offensive. We don't want to see it.
People do, yeah.
But then you understand, it's like, look, Nazi Germany happened because good people sat by and said, this isn't good, but I'm not saying anything. I'm not going to get killed. For us, we're worried about followers on Twitter. Those guys were worried about their life. And you go, can you understand and have grace for them and say, you know what? I'm just going to work my life, and whatever happens with those guys, I can't help them. And these atrocities happen. I think that's the mindset we have that's very, very dangerous.
Man, you said something there. And this is why, something I've been called a lot over the last 2 years is brave. And on one hand, I respect and appreciate that. But on another side, it sort of annoys me because I'm like, I'm not brave, right? Like to me, like my bar for brave, or maybe I am brave, but I've never had to step up to a certain plate, right? But my standard for what I consider brave, right? I consider people going out to fight in the military brave. I consider a fireman running into a burning building to save a child or somebody. I consider that brave. I consider diving into like raging waters to try to save someone from drowning brave. I consider a policeman going out there to, face violent criminals or whatever, knowing that there's a chance that they could die. I consider that brave. I'm like, I rap, I podcast, and I post stuff on social media, right? Like, I'm like, there's no threat to my life, right? Or to my physical health, etc., from what I do. So on one hand, I'm kind of like, yeah, cool. I appreciate the compliment. But on the other, I'm like, man, is the bar for bravery so low? Is cowardice now so common that just by me saying these basic things, I'm looked at as the person who's like, wow, this person's like top 1% in bravery. And I'm just like, man, that concerns me. Because again, I do have that awareness of history. And I know what happens when people stay silent on certain things, and you have the bystander effect. I also understand when people human beings are inherently tribal, and as you've said, right, people can get tribal over from what you eat from what you eat to more serious to
what kind of workout you do, what kind of
Exactly, right. You
Who's the
got,
best boxer of all time, baseball player of
powerlift
all time, all this stuff, right?
powerlifting versus CrossFit, red
Yeah, yeah.
versus blue, labor versus conservative, Republican versus Democrat, atheist versus right. Human beings are inherently tribal, right? Human beings are inherently tribal. And that's not always a bad thing, but it can manifest in the worst ways possible, right? If you think of the worst atrocities all throughout all of the worst atrocities in history, as without fail, right? They all start with the tribalism and the us versus them mentality, followed by dehumanization, followed by aggression, followed by, violence. In the worst cases, okay, we need to totally wipe out this group of people, right? Whether that's based on race or ethnicity or religious belief or whatever the
Censorship.
thing may,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever the thing may be. And it's just like whenever I start seeing something happening along those stages, right? Even if it's the early stage, I'm already like, warning bell, like, guys, bad idea, right? When I'm seeing people saying like, what about if we put everybody who voted for Donald Trump on a list? Right? When I start, I'm like, wait, ring the bell, wait, no, bad
Well,
idea,
because
bad
what
idea.
happens is when you have that mentality, what happens when the other guys get in power, now you're on the list,
Of
right?
course.
That's the problem is you put lists on each other and when whoever's in power and you say, oh, it's okay because it's my guy. Well, it's not
Mhm.
okay because it's your
No.
guy. If it's my guy, I don't want him doing the wrong thing either. If you want to root out corruption, take my guy, take your guy. We can hug each other and watch them both go to prison because they're corrupt. Really, I think at that point, and I think
Yeah.
I hate to disagree with you on stuff, man. I usually don't do this with a guest, but I would call you brave, and here's why. Because you stand up for what you believe despite what the popular opinion is, and myself included. I have a fear of man because I don't want people to be upset, and I want to say something. I go, this isn't right, but
Yeah.
too controversial, I don't want to say because I'm going to offend
Mhm.
people. So we're
Mhm.
so afraid of offending people that we can't speak the truth. So I think it
Yeah.
takes bravery. For me, it takes bravery to say, look, guys, here's how I see it. You may not agree, but this is how I see the world. As a
Yeah.
doctor, here's what I see. It may
Sure.
not be popular to talk about life and death and what we think, but I see people die and I know what
Yeah.
they go through, right?
Yeah.
And having faith, man, it makes a difference. So for people say, well, don't talk about your faith, we don't want to hear it. It's like, well,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but that's medicine I can help you with if you're open to that, right? Because
Yeah.
you, me, all of us at one point we're gonna be on our back looking up, going, okay, what was it about? And I look at you and I'm like, this is a guy along this line when you're an old man and you're telling, oh, here's what I did, blah blah blah, like all the stuff you've done, right?
Yeah.
And I was hoping you could get my hip-hop career going, man. That's why I had you on, really, but I don't think there's hope for that. Hey,
Yeah.
but yeah, but that kind of stuff, but you are a living life, and a lot of people are sitting in their basement typing mean stuff to people on that's their life, right? And I
Yeah.
see it,
Yeah.
like you're saying. The other point was this kid, I don't know if you saw, but he ran a triathlon, and he's the first Down syndrome kid to run the triathlon. I'm like, this is so cool.
Okay.
It's like touching. He did it. He
Nice.
worked hard. It's like, how many people with all the ability don't do that?
Mhm.
And then on Twitter, I mean, on YouTube, there's a guy thumbs it down. I'm like,
Yeah, of
how does
course.
this? How do you see this kid? Or I see someone lose 200 pounds and they go, oh, look at that loose skin. You're like, what kind
Yeah.
of person is like that?
Mhm.
And that's what I think. You and I see stuff like that. And you go,
Yeah, yeah.
why are you like that? Because you put your stuff not to hurt people, but you're making the point. Go, guys, this is silly. We need to look at it.
Yeah. What you have to remember, and this is something that's come as well. I've been a musician now for almost 15 years, which is crazy. And as you know, if you're a musician, you're going to have critics, you're going to have haters, people are going to attack you. People who don't know you are going to love you, and people who don't know you are also going to hate you or think they do, right? And it can be a very bizarre, disorienting thing, right? It's always a weird thing when I'm just like, man, like this person doesn't even know me. And whether it's love or it's hate, you're like, whoa, this is crazy. But it's important to remember that when people do or they say that kind of thing, especially in this age of the internet and anonymity and all that, is they're not saying anything about you or the target. They're just saying something about themselves,
Yeah.
right? That's literally all it is, right? So that kid with Down syndrome who did that, or the person who lost 200 pounds, the person who is in the YouTube comment section or who is there, who's trolling them or making fun of them or insulting them or whatever, it says absolutely nothing about the person they're targeting. It says everything about them. It says a lot about them, right? Because you have to be in a really negative situation in your life to say something like that, or to even for that even to be your gut reaction. Like if I see somebody succeed in some way, like on social media, I'm always seeing, people losing weight, or someone getting into the gym, or someone graduating, or, achieving something, getting a pay rise, starting a business, whatever. Even if I don't know the person, like I'll always like it. And sometimes I'll even comment.
totally.
Right. And my natural disposition is like, it's not even fake. I don't think about it. I genuinely feel joy for that person. I legitimately feel happy. So for me to, for me to like see that and to feel anger or jealousy or envy or rage at someone else's success, it's like you have to be in, maybe this doesn't mean you're technically like a bad person, but you're in a real bad place in your heart and your mind if that is the connection that comes from seeing someone else happy or successful or achieving or whatever. So if you're someone who's ever on the receiving end of that, it just helps to remember, like, what they're saying has nothing to do with me, right? They're angry, they're upset, their life is not going well, and I just happen to be the target who they've seen, and now they're spitting out that venom at me
Exactly.
just because I'm there.
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
popped up. Yeah.
And for whatever reason it is, I think that's a big thing that we're seeing. And that's why I'm so glad you joined me. And for me, it was like that too. Because for me, what happened was when I talked about faith on Twitter, I get this storm for 3 days, like crazy. People are fighting like crazy. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to be positive, and this turned into this crazy thing because
Yeah.
people are saying, prove your faith to me. Prove it
Yeah.
scientifically. I was like,
Of course,
it's
it doesn't
faith.
work
They
that
want to
way,
be
does
faith
it?
if I can prove it. But I can tell you what my life experience is. So let me get
Sure.
Zuby on. Let me get people like you on who say, look, here's what I believe and here's why.
Mm.
Not preaching the Bible, say that, John 3:16 says this, and because if they
Mhm.
don't believe the Bible, then that's useless. But when you say this guy was I had the fortune of meeting a guy he was the head of MS-13 in Guatemala.
Oh,
Now
wow.
he's a clown helping people. He got saved. His whole life changed. So this guy was killing
Wow.
people, and I'm trying to say, how does this happen? It doesn't make sense. Now he's a
Wow.
clown helping people. Like their clowns are legit. They're not freaky like here in the
Okay.
States. I don't
Okay.
know in England how it is, but like I don't like clowns personally, but these guys are my favorite people on earth that I see. This guy went
Wow.
from killing people and hatred and bitterness to spreading love and kindness, and he reaches out and fixes people's houses and does stuff. You're like, man, this guy's life was lost, and
Wow.
he finds God and he changes. Like, explain that to me. I can't
Yeah.
figure that out, right?
Yeah. It's powerful. It's powerful. And you know, um, look, like I say, I mean, ultimately, we all have to get on with each other. Well, we don't have to, but life is much, the world is a much more pleasant place, and any given country or city is a much more pleasant place if we get on with each other. And if we look at the same time, we all do have a lot more. I know it doesn't always feel this way. I know it doesn't always feel this way, but we genuinely do all have much more in common than we have that differentiates us, right? No matter how opposed two people might be on paper in terms of, say, politics and religion, right? Um, what you actually have in common is is probably, it's probably 80-20. You've probably got 80% in common, and then the 20% stuff is things you disagree with. And again, and we can also be honest, right? Is that, and this is for some religious people don't really like to think of it this way or to say it this way, but it is a truth, and it is a fact that a lot of religious belief is also based on, how you were raised and where you were raised. Okay? So if I were raised by parents from Iraq, and I was raised in Iraq, and my parents were, Muslim, I'd probably be a Muslim. Right, like
Yeah,
that's just reality, right?
yeah.
Maybe I would have discovered Christianity but I probably, and so a lot of this, even though religious beliefs are something that are so strongly held within us, there we do also, just from a pragmatic rational perspective, there is also a lot of, I guess you could say, random probability that also plays into there, right? Because if you're just born in this, if you are born and raised in Saudi Arabia, the probability of you being Muslim is like 99%, right? It just is, right? Whereas if you're born over on this massive land, the probability of you being Jewish or Hindu or Christian, or, so, I can understand why, of course, everyone thinks that they are right and thinks that, all of their conclusions have been reached by themselves. But the truth is that, you know, it's not. And I'm someone who I like to consider myself like I believe in God, and I've never doubted it. Um, but I'm also like a humble believer. I'm a humble person of faith, right? So I'm happy to say publicly, I've said it many times, I'm happy to say, you know what? I could be wrong. I could be wrong, right? I believe in God, and I can, if someone wants to know, okay, why, right? I can explain certain things both from a logical perspective and from a more sort of like feeling and experience perspective, right? On a simple level, I don't believe that something can come from nothing. And if someone wants to know why I believe in a creator, I don't believe something can come from nothing.
Yeah,
So
we're the same, man. We're
however
like,
far back you go, right? I'm like, something can't come from nothing, right?
yeah, two pieces of dirt don't rub together, and then you have life. It just
No, and
doesn't
you
make
have life.
sense
No,
to me
exactly. Like
logically.
that. Exactly. That doesn't make sense to me. But I'm happy to say from a perfectly honest perspective, I'm like, you know what? Like I can be talking to, a staunch atheistic friend. I'm like, you know what, bro? I could be wrong.
Yeah,
And I'm
totally
okay
right.
with that.
Yeah, I'm at peace with that too. It's like, man, if I live my life to be a good person and I'm wrong, okay,
I'm like,
so be it,
I'm like,
right?
I'm like, it's called belief. It's called faith, right? I can't give you like a mathematical, scientifically sound proof explaining all of my beliefs. Obviously, because that's not what any religion is. It's a faith. So I can't do that. So I'm like, look, this is my position. I have my belief. I'm strong in my belief, and I try to live my life a certain way. I'm far from perfect at it. Like, not many of us, nobody is perfect at it, but this is my belief. This is my worldview. This is where this comes from. If you want me to explain this thing or that thing, I will do my best to. But ultimately, I have the humility to go, you know what? I could be wrong. I could be wrong, right? I could
It
get come
wouldn't
to
be
the end of my
faith if
life,
you knew it. Then it wouldn't be faith
and
anymore,
it
right? That's the whole
wouldn't be
point, right?
faith. No, it wouldn't be faith, right? And I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people just don't seem to understand that. Like as soon as someone asks me for like scientific proof of God, I'm already like, we're not.
It's not going
Like
to go well.
we're
Yeah, we're
no,
going to
no,
be
like
like,
like
yeah,
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 we're
yeah.
not
It's
even
not going to
talking
happen.
on the same. We're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
talking on the
exactly.
same level,
Right. Yeah, and I think
because
that's an important thing. Hey, did you ever have a time where you go, look, I've hit rock bottom or things aren't good, and you had to lean on your faith or had an experience with God
oh
where you go,
yeah.
okay, this is real.
Um, yeah, I mean, look, I've had a lot of times where like my life is very blessed, and my lows are still going to be higher than a lot of people's, highs, maybe even. But of course, like every human being, man, I've had a lot of challenges. I've dealt with a lot of loss. I've seen a lot of death, right? I've seen a lot of sickness. I've seen a lot of death. I've witnessed a lot of things that seem to be unfair, et cetera, or positions I've been in where I don't understand why I'm in that position. Um, and yeah, that is where faith is particularly powerful, actually, where you do feel like, okay, you can frame things in a way that makes you feel like, okay, like God is with me. There is a reason and there is a purpose behind this, and things will, things will work out. And also just being able to just be like, you know what? I do my best to understand the world around me, and I do my best to understand things that happen and why they happen. But again, I'm okay to accept that there are going to be things in this world that I cannot understand,
And
and
that you
which
can't control.
I can't understand. I can't control them, but I also can't understand. I also can't understand them, right? A child dying of cancer. I can't. Someone who's very anti-religion or anti-theistic will take that and be like, boom, there's your proof that God doesn't exist. Or if God exists, then he's a cruel God. What do you have to say about that, right? And it's a fair question, and I can understand, I can empathize with the perspective. To me, it's not like impossible for me to think, oh, why would someone believe that? I'm like, man, the world is a cruel place. The world is cruel. There is evil. There is darkness. People do horrible things to each other. Nature does horrible things to people,
Yeah.
right? Like, life is harsh, but also life is also beautiful, right? It's also beautiful. There's also hope. There's also opportunity, and there's love, and there's kindness, and there's generosity. And, there's all these things. Do I understand it all? I'm like, no, I don't. Like I have questions for God too. Trust me. Trust me, I have a lot of
Yeah,
questions for
we'll
God
line
as
up,
well.
brother. Yeah, I'll line
Yeah,
up with you on that because
I have a lot of questions too, and I can't explain everything. Like I'm just me. I'm just Zuby. Like I don't I have ideas and I can put together, hypotheses and stuff, but ultimately, sometimes I'm willing to just put my hands up and say, you know what? I don't know. I don't know.
But I think as you walk through it, you know God's with you. Like
Yeah.
COVID, whatever it is, you go, okay, look, I'm not gonna live in fear,
Yeah.
right? If it's my time, it's my time. I've been, I had guns pointed at me and all that kind of fun stuff in
Yeah.
the third world, and I'm like, this is the time it is, and it wasn't. So I'm still
Yeah.
here to talk to you. I guess maybe my
Good.
purpose was to talk to you. Um, Zuby, was there ever a time like when you started getting more popular, your music starts connecting with people? Did you ever change? Did you ever get to a point where you go like, I'm all that, where you started to be about you, or like,
Hmm.
you don't strike me as
No.
that type of guy, but it's a hard thing
No,
sometimes.
no. I mean, look, I mean, for me, stuff really started growing a lot in 2019. 2019 is the year, 2019, 2020. Those are the last 2 years, the years where 90 something percent of the people who know me now discovered me in the last 2 years. And I don't think I've changed. And I think a big part of that, like I said, number one, I'm grounded because I'm surrounded by good people. But another big factor is also the fact of it's been really gradual for me. I put out my first album in 2006. So people might be discovering me now, but I've had like a real long time to slowly acclimatize to the changes. So even when it sort of spiked, it was like, okay, this is just like turning up the volume. It's turning up the volume. And there are certain things where it's like, oh wow, okay, that's weird, or that's strange, or I'm having this experience which I didn't expect, or I'm having this experience or whatever. But I'm the same person. I'm the same person. If anything, I've become more authentic because I've realized that people love my authenticity, and my authenticity is I don't even like to view myself as a brand, but if Zuby is a brand, then my authenticity is a part of it, right? And I think that's the best thing you can have as part of your own brand, because it means like, man, you've won. Then there's no competition. I just be myself, and I win by just being myself, and that's a beautiful position to be in, especially as a creative, especially as an entrepreneur, especially as a musician, because there are a lot of people out there who are faking and having to put on all sorts of masks and costumes and disguises, both metaphorically and literally, in order to sort of maintain what they do. So I'm very grateful that my fan base and my audience and my supporters, they know the genuine Zuby. I'm not like hiding all these skeletons in my closet or pretending to be something that I'm not, or hiding this or hiding that. And it means that I can just feel free every day.
Yeah, man.
It means I can
Yeah.
talk. It means I can talk about things without. There's things I could go on Twitter right after this thing, and I could write something that would get 95% of other people canceled, and it won't get me canceled because my audience already knows, hey, that's Zuby.
They
So
know your integrity. That's it. When
yeah,
you're transparent and it's an integrity, because I see, obviously as a hip hop guy and fitness guy, you do it all, man, and that's awesome. And I think that's
thank you.
part of it is saying, hey, look, you're investing and you're doing these things. But I think the reality is people want authenticity, right?
Yes,
You can see
yes.
my dumpy, this is my office, man. I don't have a
Hmm.
fancy thing like Joe Rogan, right? But the thing is when you're yourself and go, look, it's not about the fancy, hopefully one day it will be, but it's more about saying, hey, look, this is who I am. Cool. This is I'm just gonna be honest, because I think a lot of artists and actors and they've sold their soul. They come out and they're one thing and then they change because well,
Yeah,
people don't want that. Zuby,
yeah.
people don't want to hear that message. They don't want to hear Christian stuff,
Hmm.
and you're controversial. I mean, in a way, where you're going against the group. That's why you stand out. That's why I wanted you on.
Yeah,
Because me, I don't care about you're a popular guy, and I listen to your music. I go, this connects with me. I like this, right?
thank you.
I can work out and have you with me, right?
Oh
And
man,
hear your
wait, wait,
wisdom and hear, right?
wait until the new album, man. Wait
I'm
until the
ready,
new
man.
album.
And we're
Oh
gonna,
man.
yeah, we're gonna. I'm excited, man. So
Yeah,
yeah, all that kind of stuff. And so I think it's that when you're authentic to yourself, then you never have to like when someone lies, they have to lie all the time because they're lying
exactly.
another lie, and like people struggling with addiction, they go, I should have told you, doc. I didn't want it because I was
Yeah,
embarrassed,
yeah.
but now we can help you. Now
Hmm.
we can do something. But I think that's the thing is there's no hip hop guy. There's no maybe a couple stars that I would like to talk to just because of their faith and they stand up
Hmm.
for it. But I don't want to have the popular guys, the big names on necessarily. You are a big name, and I
Hmm.
definitely appreciate you coming on. But the point is, it's not about that for me, because I know guys who are multimillionaires that are jerks, and that I don't want to be around. It's not about the money, it's not about the fame, but I think there's things where it's the decency of the person, right? And I think that's what you are, is transparent, and you go, look, here's how I see it, and no one can argue with you for how you see it. You may be wrong and say, prove me wrong, but here's how I see it.
Yeah, and look, and ultimately, regardless of what, someone who doesn't know me might think, I am genuinely, I am a humble person, and I am an open-minded person, right? I've had my views changed on things before, sometimes in dramatic ways, right? And and I'm always willing to hear if someone disagrees with any of my positions. Like I'm willing to hear. Like I'm like, okay, talk to me, tell me. Like, if you think I'm wrong, or if you want me to explain something more, let me know. Twitter might not be the best method to do this.
Exactly.
I communicate with hundreds of thousands of people simultaneously, but like on a one-to-one basis or on a group basis, I'm like, like let's talk. Like let's just talk. And I'm not, I'm just going to explain my position. I'm not always necessarily even trying to change your mind, or you're not trying to change mine. We're just explaining our positions, and then we can both go away. It's rare for someone to change their mind in the moment. Normally what actually happens is you have a conversation, or you have multiple conversations. And then over time, you think about things, you mull it over, and you're like, that was a really good point. Like, okay, maybe I can integrate that, right? Because then you just have a more detailed worldview, right? It's not always even about changing your mind. It's like adding to your knowledge base. It's like, okay, all right, there's some people who think that. So, okay, I get that. I can see, I see why you would think that. So, okay, I still believe this, but I can understand that. I can understand that. I can understand that. Okay, fair enough,
Yeah, and that's the thing, is when you can say, I can see why you see it that way, but here's my life experience, and this is why I see it my way, and then cool, we agree to disagree. Or sometimes you go, and I've had guys like that where I go, he's an idiot, and then a week later I'm like, that's pretty smart, he's wise, that makes sense. Now I think about it, it makes sense, right? So I think some stuff, I mean, I've seen some stuff that you tweet on, like, and then I go, he's right. That's how I feel too. That's right, right?
Do you have an example? I'm curious.
No, just stuff that you like. What did you say the other day? And I was like, "Ooh, Zuby." I can't remember what it was now. I was like, "Should I like it or not?" Because if I like it, people are gonna get mad at me. And it wasn't I can't even remember what it was actually. But I remember looking. I was like, "Gosh, who you pick? You were just coming back at someone, man. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I remember at the time I was like, like I like it, so I can't help it. I like it. So because there's a lot of stuff I look and I don't like what the person says, so I'm like, I'm not going to engage them. This guy's no matter what I say, it's not. It's one of those things. If I'm not going to argue with you, but what I do realize is if I'm having a discussion about faith with someone online, there's maybe hundreds or thousands of people looking, going, okay, that seems like a reasonable argument, right? You're not calling the other guy a jerk because he doesn't believe what you believe, but what I've seen is when it crosses the line of disrespect, then I say, okay, look. Like when on Sunday morning, I got a tweet for some guy 5 a.m. saying, Jesus is an idiot. And like this whole thing is like, come on, dude, on Sunday of all things. And you're making the point. It's like, block. I can't deal with you. I tried to help you, man, but live your life the way you want, but don't attack me. Right. So I've seen that where people say, oh, these guys of faith are idiots. And I was like, okay, that's your opinion. But I wake up happy and I kiss my wife and I have a nice cup of coffee and I enjoy my life. Right. If I go home happy and you go home happy, I'll try not to be jealous of you and your success. No, I'm not. I really, when I see you doing stuff, I'm like, man, all the power, man. I want guys like you to succeed. I want guys like you to do well in life. And I know you will, no matter what. And I think that's the thing of faith is like, you could lose everything and you can still be happy. I've been in one guy I don't know if you've seen this guy because you're in the musical stuff. Brushy One String. Have you ever seen this guy?
I have not, no.
He's the only other guy I want to get on this podcast. And actually it's in the works right now. Look at this guy, a Brushy One String. He's a Jamaican dude with one string on his guitar. But this, like, when you look at this, I mean, to me, it spoke because I've been in El Salvador, Guatemala, Vietnam, Cuba, in really poor areas. But you see some guy gets his guitar and starts playing and all the people are happy. And it's called Rising Up. It's on YouTube. Rising Up. Brushy One String. Anyways, this guy, he just starts playing and all these people are happy and hugging each other, having a good old time, and they have nothing. You could see how poor they are. But us Americans have everything and we don't get it, and we're miserable because our cellular goes out for an hour or whatever, right? So I think a lot of it's life perspective and being appreciative of what you have. And I think a lot of us have to realize that even if the government doesn't go our way and things go, you can still be content and pleased and happy and bless people around you, no matter what your situation.
Gratitude and perspective all the time.
Man, amen. I can't say any more than that. I hate it when hours go by this fast, man. This is like the fast hour. I've been looking forward to this because really much respect. I love what you're doing. And
Thank you.
no, really. And it, again, this shows character because there's so many other places you could be right now. You could be on huge, Joe Rogan, all those type of things. But you go, hey, look, I'll just go on this guy's podcast and talk to him for an hour. But I think you're a hero in that way of
Thank you.
a lot of people are seeing the world like you are and going, man, he has the courage to say what I'm thinking. That's how I feel about you, because that's the reality. I go, man, I like what you're saying. So I'm not afraid to like you anymore, man. You gave me hope. I can retweet you and stuff and not get hated. Awesome. But you look at my little followers compared to yours, like, hey, this guy has the courage to say what he believes. And I think more of us have to step. I think that is the age we're in. I think that's what God has called us to, is to say, look, be able to stand up for your belief. Don't be rude and offensive, and don't get in people's face, but say, hey, look, here's how I see the world. I'm sorry, this is my view. Don't like me or like me, right?
And one thing I'll also say is, I don't like to view people as opponents or opposition, but the people who are, spreading out some of these ideas, which I do think are very destructive and divisive or whatever, like, they're not shy, right? They're pretty brave and courageous about it. So why should everyone else be cowed by that? You see what I mean, right? Like, they're the one, they're pretty brazen in their approach. So, okay, like, why should I hide from you? Right? Like, why should I hide from you? I fear God. I don't fear man. Maybe if man's got a gun to my head in the exact moment, then I will. But generally,
I think you'll still turn to God in that moment and go, okay, God, come through for me, man. I'm gonna need a little hookup on this one.
It's only happened once before, and those were police officers, mistaken identity. But that's a whole different story,
dude.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. But yeah.
So Zuby, on the way out, man, with all your influence, with your life, all your success, what's life's best medicine for you?
Wow.
Where do you find your grounding? Where do you find your peace? Where do you find
I think we've been talking about faith quite a bit, man. I would say for me, it's my faith. It's my faith, and it's also knowing my purpose. Knowing my purpose. And that links together. My name literally translates in English to God's decision. And I take that seriously.
Wow, man. Hey, thanks for joining me. And I'm so thankful for my guests and people listening. And you've heard some major wisdom. This is one you'll have to listen to like 10 times to really grasp what he's saying. I'm telling you, when you sit back and think about it, this is powerful stuff. This is a powerful hour for me, and I'm blessed for sure. And go out and be kind, be decent, love yourself, love other people, kind of just realize we're on the same thing together, and be less likely to judge and throw stones. Drop your stone sometimes and just say, hey, I love you. You're an idiot, but I love you still, right? We're a dysfunctional family as human beings. That's what we have to look at. So Zuby, man, you want to close this in something, man?
No doubt, man. I would just say to everyone, man, you've got potential for greatness. So focus on fulfilling that potential, and it'll ripple outwards towards your family, your friends, everybody out there. So if you want to make the world a better place, start with yourself, fulfill your own potential, and follow me on social media at Zuby Music on everything. Zuby.
Yeah, Zuby Music everywhere, man. And we'll put links to all your stuff. And
awesome.
And keep doing what you're doing, man. You got a lot of people behind you.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
All right, man. God bless.
God bless.